Hello and welcome to the Hospitality Hotline. Thursday at 10 o'clock is when I show up on Instagram and Facebook to answer your hospitality questions. Today, before we dive in, this is part 2 of a session or topic that I'm doing on hosting large groups in your home. We had so many people ask a variety of questions when I threw this topic out that we decided to divide it up. And last week was part 1. I talked about some space related issues. I talked about some heart related issues. Today we're going to focus on the food. And I've made something for you. First time I've ever done this. Be gentle and kind. I have put together the guide to hosting large groups in your home, in which this beautiful, hard to read, I'll make it darker next time, but this beautiful cover, and then there are some pages in here with all the information and topics that I have talked about last week and I'm going to talk about this week. Just a guide for things to think through if you are hosting a large group. Last week we talked about how a large group, let me tell you how you can get this. That might be helpful information. Okay, if you're on Instagram, you can go to the link in my profile and click the option that says Get the Guide. If you're on Facebook, after this post goes archived in the video section of my Facebook page, there will be we'll put the link to get it in the copy of the post. And then if you're watching this after the fact on the blog, same thing. In the body of the blog post, we will put a link where you can enter your email address and I'll email it to you, and then you can download it and have it either electronically or you can print it out and hang it on your refrigerator, put it in a binder, I don't know, whatever you want to do with it. It's a really great resource. I hope you like it. So we were talking about how a large group, I define a large group as more people than you can fit around your table. And it's a very relative term. It's very subjective. Well, it's not subjective, it's actual, but your large group might be different than my large group. But it's important to know that once you have gone outside the number of people you can comfortably sit around your table, then you're hosting a large group. And large groups are really fun. So last week, we covered some questions related to how do I create enough room for everybody? How do I include everyone? Kind of the complications or challenges around the literal space and our hearts and attitudes as we engage with the challenges of having a lot of people in your home. My favorite question was how to get everybody to leave. We had fun answering that. So all of those can be seen on last week's video. Today, part 2, we are going to dive in to the menu and food related issues that come with feeding a large group. Now, right out of the gate, I hope that you know that I know that hospitality does not necessarily mean that you have to cook. If you love cooking and it is life-giving and you're able to do it, then by all means, have at it. But when you host a large group, you do not have to cook in order to be hospitable. You may need to feed everyone, but that is a different matter than cooking. So I really want to dispel the myth that hospitality is one-to-one when it comes to cooking, that cooking is hospitality and hospitality requires cooking. That's just not true. It's not the point. You will hear me say this. The food is not the point, but the food is important. So make sure it's good. But you do not have to cook. A lot of what I'm going to suggest today is going to talk about cooking, because I think there are some of us that do enjoy that, and there are seasons where that makes sense. And then there are strategies that really you can put into play without turning a single burner or a single oven on. So just know that I'm with you in that. Okay, the first question is not really a question, it's just a phrase, and I get it. It says, my single oven. I hear you. Single ovens, I have a single oven. I think I've mentioned before, my kitchen, the home that we're living in now is wonderful. It happens to have the smallest kitchen I've ever had. And this is the kitchen in which I started Hurley House, ran that business out of that tiny little kitchen for 3 years, out of the single oven that can hold 2 of the small size sheet trays. Like, I can fit 2 9x13 pans in my oven. That's it. at once. Like that's I'm maxed out on that. So I hear you, I get it. The single oven, I dream of having a double oven with a warming drawer. That's ideal. But the reality is sometimes we only have a single oven. So what do you do if you're trying to feed a crowd and you only have a single oven? You do not center your menu around things that have to go in the oven. That's what you do. If you're hosting a lot of people in your lovely home and your heart is in the right place and you have created space for them, but you only have one oven, there is not a tip I can give you to make that work. I cannot magically create more oven space for you. I cannot magically make your kitchen something it's not. You need to think realistically about what you have, the best way to use it, and you're gonna have to get creative. Okay, I wanna take a time out real quick. There is one situation that as I was thinking about this answer, where I know this will not apply. Let's say that you are hosting Thanksgiving in your home, it's a large group, and you only have one oven. I know that there are certain holiday meals where the menu centers around things that are cooked in 9x13 pans. I mean, you've got sweet potatoes and stuffing and mashed potatoes and green beans and rolls and a turkey and gravy. Like everything basically gets cooked in the oven. In the home where I live now, we hosted Thanksgiving in our home before we had the store and access to more ovens. We hosted Thanksgiving in our home with the one small oven, and I want to tell you what I did because I know this answer does not work for Thanksgiving. The cook something different doesn't work for Thanksgiving. Here's what we did. We fried our turkey, so turkey was out on the back patio, not in the oven. We used the oven to heat sides, and I'm going to tell you a little trick. If you use a cooler as it's insulated, and so it'll keep ice cold, it will also keep hot things hot. So if you bring a big cooler, like a Yeti or an Igloo or whatever brand you want to use, and you get one big enough that you can put 9x13s down in the bottom of it, a cooler will act like a warming drawer for about an hour to an hour and a half. So you can time it to where, like if it were me, I would put my stuffing and probably my sweet potatoes in the oven first, cook them, take them out, put them in the cooler, and then I would put maybe what's left, green bean casserole and some dinner rolls, and then time it to where I'm taking the first two out of the cooler and the last two out of the oven, and it's all warm at the same time. That's about the best you're gonna do in a Thanksgiving situation. If it's not Thanksgiving, and you don't have to do a menu centered around 9x13 pans of hot side dishes, you need to think creatively about your menu and don't center it around something that requires your oven. It's a headache. So live within your means, use what you have, but my tip would be for Thanksgiving, use the cooler. Other than that, I want you to think creatively of other menu options, and I'm gonna give you some ideas here in just a second. Okay, the next question says, I would love ideas for post-church dinner parties where I can't be home before the meal. Okay, I know this person, and we actually attend the same church, and our church meets in the afternoon at 4 o'clock. So we're usually getting out of church 5:15, 5:30, and so by the time you get home, if you're having people over after church, it's dinner time. And this same idea would work for if you're having people over for lunch if you attend morning church. But the idea is I'm going to have people walking into my house to enjoy a meal together, but I'm not going to be there right at the last minute to get things ready. I'm kind of going to be arriving roughly at the same time as my guests. Okay, I have some ideas for you. Generally speaking, as an overarching approach, I want you to think in terms of assembling a menu rather than cooking a menu. Okay, what does that mean? Thanksgiving is cooking a menu. I want you to think about assembling food. I want you to think about taking components and putting them together to create something that you can serve your guests. I live in Texas. 9 months out of the year, we have a very hot to temperate climate. There are a few months where it's cold and something warm is a nice touch. For the majority of the year where I live, room temperature or assembled or cold type foods are absolutely acceptable. So there are two ways I would think about this. We did this exact situation 2 weeks ago. We had people over after church for a dinner, And the first approach is to serve a pot of something that you have already made, that is already finished, and all you have to do is turn the stove on to warm it up. As an added layer, you could take, and I did this, I served white chicken chili. You can take the big pot of white chicken chili out and put it on your stove. Don't turn the stove on as you walk out the door. It will just allow it to kind of come to room temperature a little bit so that when you walk in an hour and a half later, it's totally food safe. Nothing's going to start going bad in an hour and a half. You turn your stove on low and it's ready in about 15 or 20 minutes to serve, which allows people time to get there, get a drink, get ready. So that's my first suggestion. If you want to serve something hot, do a big pot of something that is ready to go and you turn on your stove. Okay, the second approach is to think of cold or room temperature, what I would call like picnic type foods. Things like sandwiches that are made on big ciabatta rolls that are wrapped in plastic. You take them out of your fridge, slice them, and put them on a platter. Wraps that you have made, kind of the same strategy, that you've either wrapped in parchment paper or that you've wrapped in plastic wrap. You take them out, you remove the plastic wrap, and go. You can even have them already on the platter. Chicken salad, egg salad, pasta salad, pimento cheese, all those like picnic type foods ready to go. You can also, one of my favorite things to do is a huge main dish salad, a grilled flank steak salad, a fajita salad, a chicken Cobb salad, a Greek salad with some marinated chicken, all of which is already made and prepared, ready to pull out of the fridge and just assemble. The lettuce goes in the bowl, the cheese goes on top, the chicken and the dressing, boom, ready to go. You're not going to do any of this in the last minute. You're looking for something that you can piece together in about 10 to 15 minutes and you're ready to go. This is the strategy for menus. Now, I told you about white chicken chili, I told you about wraps and sandwiches, and I told you about a large main dish salad. Those are the three categories that I would be thinking of. There is not a situation in which I would center a post-church menu around a casserole or a piece of meat or potato, like, unless, and here's the caveat, unless you want to wait and allow that to cook. Like, that's one way to do it, is you have things and you're just going to eat an hour to an hour and a half after you walk in the door. But I think the heart of this question is, what can I walk in the door and have ready to go? So those are my examples that I would suggest. The key to success in all of these menus is not only do they not require last minute cooking, but every single component and every step of every component is 100% executable ahead. I want you to play a little game called How Many Things Can I Do Ahead? And I want you, this is so important in hosting large groups in any facet, not just the food. What happens, and where most people start to feel stressed or overwhelmed or frazzled at the last minute, is they underestimate the time it takes to do each task, no matter how simple or basic, but to do it on the scale required to host a large group in the context of multiple steps. It becomes a logistics thing, and things that seem simple actually end up taking more time than you think. So I want you to play a game in regards to your menu called How Many Things Can I Do Ahead? For example, let's use a couple weeks ago when I served white chicken chili to 25 people after walking in the door from church. Could I leave the sour cream out on the counter before I left for church? No, I cannot. That's not a good idea. But you know what I can do? I can open the sour cream, put it in the bowl I'm going to serve it, cover it with plastic wrap, and put that bowl in the fridge, and put the serving spoon out next to the empty spot where it's going to go. So now when I walk in and the chili is heating up, I go to my fridge, I grab the bowl, I put it on the counter, remove the plastic wrap, the spoon is already there. There's literally one step I had to do, not open, take it out, put it, find a bowl, find a spoon. Like, all those tiny little things add up when you're hosting large groups. If it was just you and me for dinner, that's not a big deal. When it's 25 people, it's a big deal. So you take every step and you ask the question, how much of this can I do ahead? And you will be surprised how much you can do ahead. Chips, can be in the bowl, open, waiting on the counter. I had cheese, sour cream, and cilantro in the bowls in the fridge, literally with the serving spoon out on the counter ready to go. I had the silverware, the bowls, the ladle out on a cutting board next to the stove. We had the cooler with the drinks already out on the patio. I'm trying to think of other things that we did. Oh, we had the cookies and bars. I just got them here from the bakery, but we had them in a bakery box, and we had them on the bakery box on top of a platter. And when I walked in, I just removed them from the box and put them on the platter. How many things can I do ahead? If you find yourself in your head saying, well, I'll just ... Don't do that. That's the trap. We start to simplify and we underestimate when we use the phrase, yeah, we'll get home and I'll just, make guacamole. No, you won't. I mean, you will. You're going to be totally stressed out if you wait till the last minute to make guacamole. I'll just put the sour cream and cheese and everything in the bowl when I get home. Okay, you can. It would be so much simpler and and free you up so much more if you will do all of that ahead. And that's where it comes to you've got to do as many things ahead as you can. This is going to change the way you interact with the stress level involved in hosting a large group. Okay, I think I've said enough about that. Okay, the next question is, how do I make sure there is enough food for everyone? Tips on portion planning for a big group. Okay, portion planning when it comes to feeding a large group centers around two factors. One is having a realistic understanding of the yield of a particular dish, meaning how many adult servings can you get from that lasagna, or how many adult servings can you get from one batch of that chili. And if you don't know that, then you are kind of guessing. And this is why I would not choose to serve something for the first time to a large group. I would choose something that you have served before. And this is why I take notes on my recipes. When I make a batch of soup and it says it serves 6, but really it makes 2 gallons, I will write that and say, I could have fed 20 people with a single batch of the soup. So now when I come back around and I'm ready to serve that soup to a large group, I know that 1 batch is going to be plenty. So portion planning depends on knowing kind of how many servings you can get from a batch of whatever you're making. But the other thing that it involves is understanding the economy of scale when it comes to menu planning. And here's what I mean. If you serve one thing, I just keep using this, but if you serve white chicken chili, and that's all you serve, which is fine, nothing wrong with that, that's all you serve, then your guests are going to take ample portions of the one thing and potentially come back around for seconds. So you do need to make sure you have enough white chicken chili for 20 adults. Maybe a couple of them will get seconds, so 20 to 24 servings. If you have a holiday buffet in which there are 8 to 10 choices, or a barbecue buffet where there are lots of side dishes, everyone takes significantly smaller portioned sizes of each dish, which means the beans that might serve 10 people, if it were the only thing you served, now is serving 24 people because everybody's taking a smaller scoop because there's less room on their plate. Does that make sense? The more things you offer, the less of each thing people take. One thing you serve, they're going to take a lot of it. And so you have to kind of adjust that. If you're doing a barbecue buffet, you do not need enough beans as if you were only serving beans. You've got to kind of adjust a little bit. So there are some situations where even if you know people are not big eaters, you have to, of course, provide. If you're serving hamburgers, everybody gets a hamburger because no one shares a hamburger. Even if they don't eat the whole thing, you need to have a hamburger for every single person. Same with single serving type things like hot dogs or sandwiches or wraps or whatever. You need to have one for everyone, even if not everyone finishes the entire thing. But then other things like soups and stews and dips and sides and all those good things, those can stretch and go a little further depending on how many items you serve. Okay, one thing that I have observed, and I just want to speak into this a little bit, when people are planning a party, I have observed that there tends to be this attitude of fear around two things. There's the fear that we're going to run out of food, which I understand, because as a host, if you're feeding people, you don't want to run out of food. You would really, really have to be negligent to actually run out of food. If you're giving it the kind of thought that I assume you're giving this, and you're considering what's going on, you're not going to run out of food. And if you do, let's just talk about it. There's been one time where I ran out of something. I did a bad job estimating. I should have made another batch. I ran out. Do you know what happened? We were fine. It was fine. We kind of laughed about it, and everybody had an extra portion of the other stuff. You are more than likely not going to run out of food. And if you do, it's okay. It's okay. Don't let that fear drive you. The other thing is, people are afraid of leftovers. And hear me say, hospitality, you are choosing to engage in something. And when you choose to engage in inviting people in, creating space for them, engaging your heart, providing a meal, anticipating their need, go for it. Go for it. Serve them food. Don't choose your menu in an effort to not have leftovers. It's okay if there are leftover treats. Nobody ate all the dessert. It's okay if you had, too much food. It's okay. I really cannot tell you how many people I have taken catering orders for here at the store who are gripped by this fear of, we're going to have so much food left over. Okay, you might have so much food left over. Throw the party. Do it big. Go for it. And the other extreme of that is, if you do run out of something, we're going to be okay. Your identity is not wrapped up in whether or not you run out of food. It's going to be okay. You're going to learn from it, and the people who are there with you, it's going to be okay. So that's my little soapbox for the day. I hope that helps. Last question, and this is a great one. There were two that were kind of asking the same question, so I'm going to say both of them, give you the same answer for both. But how do you prepare a large quantity of food with the same quality as a smaller family meal? And then the second question was, how do I keep everything warm without burning it? And I feel like this is kind of the same concept, just said differently. Cooking a small batch of something or a single batch of something for your family is where you learn the language and the skill and the mechanics of how preparing food works. It's where you get good at it. Doing it over and over, you get a muscle memory, you get a sense for heat, you learn. That's how you learn to cook. Taking that single thing and scaling it for a group brings on kind of a new skill set that is a little bit different. Now, in some things, it doesn't matter. You make salad for 2 people, you make salad for 20 people. It's basically lettuce and vegetables and dressing in the right amounts, tossed together, it's okay. You take something like a pot roast, you make it once, one batch. Making a quadruple batch of that is gonna bring in different skills. And there are certain things that scale easier. There are certain things that hold better, but you do need to understand that if you're going to scale a recipe, you need to hold loosely to the verbiage of that recipe, knowing that it might take longer to heat something all the way through. It might take longer for a large batch of something to saute all the way. It might take longer for the middle of something to get cooked all the way if you're doubling it and cooking it in a bigger pot. So you do need to consider it's not a one-to-one. The recipe might not exactly work if you scale it. The other factor of that is small changes happen when you start to scale something. I own a business where we basically take single batch recipes and scale them to the point of running a commercial sized operation. There are some changes that happen. Every recipe that we make here at Hurley House started as a recipe I cooked in my home, and we have just figured out how to quadruple or triple or whatever to get a bigger yield. But it's it's a skill that is can be a tiny bit tricky. So my advice to you would be, start with something you know and double it. See what happens. If you need to go beyond that, just I don't know, you'll get better as you do it more, but there are some things that scale easier than others. So just tuck that away. The way to keep everything warm without burning it is either to keep it in something thermal, like I talked about at the beginning, like a warming drawer or a cooler, where you're no longer cooking. You're not applying active heat. All you're doing is holding the heat that's currently there. Applying active heat is only going to continue to cook it and dry it out. So you want something that just maintains a very, very, very low temperature, like 180, or in a cooler where it's just insulated. Do not keep it in an oven that's on. Live and learn. There are some things that are better to hold than others, and if you have more specific questions about that, send them my way. I love to talk about scaling food. I love feeding crowds. I just love it. So if you have a specific question about a specific recipe or how you think it would work, please reach out. I really do want to be a resource on that. There's not a great one-size-fits-all answer though. Okay, those are all our questions for part 2. I really want you to look into getting this guide. It is easy to get. It's a link, it's a click, and then you'll have all of this available in a tangible or digital form. And I thank you for being here. This has been great. I look forward to next week. Thank you so much for watching.